Hey, this is the Genesis book commentary. Today I'll be reading verses 3:8 through 3:13. Just as an introduction to this passage, just now Adam and Eve have committed the original sin of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And this is the point when they're basically caught by God. So we'll see what happens. All right, here we go. Verses 3:8 through 3:13. When they heard the sound of the Lord God walking about in the garden at the breezy time of the day, the man and his wife hid themselves from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. The Lord God then called to the man and asked him, "Where are you?" He answered, "I heard you in the garden, but I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." Then God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I had forbidden you to eat?" The man replied, "The woman whom you put here with me, she gave me fruit from the tree, so I ate it." The Lord God then asked the woman, "What is this you've done?" The woman answered, "The snake tricked me, so I ate it." So, let me give you the only comment that they had here for verse 8. It says, "The breezy time of the day," literally the wind of the day, probably shortly before sunset. So, before sunset, before the start of the Jewish day, I suppose. Sunset was the start of the Jewish day. So yeah, before the start of the Jewish day, Adam and Eve were caught by God of having eaten the forbidden fruit. It's not really much of a footnote. It's just a pretty miscellaneous item. So I'd like to go through the probably 3 or 4 things that strike me the most. It was mainly the first one is Adam's reply to when God asked where he was. He said, "I heard you in the garden, but I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." Before this, Adam and Eve apparently were very comfortable with walking with God because God was trying to find them in order to walk with him, or at least to be in their company, right? And they weren't accompanying him, so God figured, there must be something wrong. Where are they? Let me call out for them. And Adam answered, "I can't come because I'm afraid." So he lost the confidence that he once had with God, right? He's now afraid of God because he sinned. Yeah, he's lost the confidence that he had with God, mainly because he's recognized himself. Because, when you're not very aware of yourself, you tend to have more confidence, right? That's why it's called, what is it? Not self-aware, but you're I don't know. You're self-critical. You're self-aware. When you're giving a presentation, you're suddenly aware of yourself, and you're very self-focused, and you're constantly just paying attention to what am I doing wrong. So this is probably what Adam felt when he was not necessarily confronted by God, because God didn't confront him. He simply asked where he was, but he felt threatened in some manner because he had sinned against God, right? He sinned, and God, even though God hadn't accused him of it yet, Adam was still afraid. So he lost the goodwill, the good friendly atmosphere, the good friendly relationship he had with God when he sinned. And yeah, he lost the confidence he had with God that he usually had beforehand because of this sin. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the etymology, or at least the construction of the word confidence, it's the first two roots are con and fid, right? Con means with, and fid means truth or faith, I believe. So when you lose your confidence, you lose the with trust or with faith. So for example, if you have like a confidentiality agreement with someone, then or if your friend promises you to be confidential or to keep your secret, then you have more confidence in order to tell them a secret, right? If you're trying to get a secret out of your friend, you say, "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone," right? You're trying to gain confidence with them. And what that means is you're trying to gain their with trust. You're trying to instill confidence in them. You're trying to instill that sense of relationship between you two, that sense that you're safe with me. And so that's really the origin of confidence, right? But that's only a one-on-one situation, right? Like there's several senses of the word confidence. There's the one sense where you promise to be confidential with someone, right? Where you say, "All right, if you're confidential, then I'll tell you this secret that I have. I'll give you my faith, and I'll relinquish this stuff that is curious to you." And the other sense of confidence is the general sense, as in, this man walks confidently. He walks with his shoulders back, his chest puffed out, as though he has control of the situation. And what does that have to do with the original, at least my first sense of the word confidence, right? Well, if you have the sense that you have this good faith, not with just one person, but with reality in general, with people in general, then you can walk with people in general confidently, right? You walk as though you have an amiable and friendly disposition towards everyone, and they have the same towards you, and that everybody is in confidence with one another. If you act like that, then suddenly you feel more confidence. Like, yes, everybody around me is on my side, and so let's go, right? And so where does that come from? The confid can also be applied, not just everyone around you, but if you're confident in general, right? If you're not, if it transcends being confident with a single person, with a group of people, with society at large. If you're confident with the world around you, then who is that? What is that entity that you have faith with? And I propose that perhaps it's God, right? Because Adam, originally, when he had confidence with God, when he had that friendly and amiable disposition with him, he was able to walk in the world confidently, because the world was God, I suppose. But once he sinned and he lost that friendly position with God, suddenly he's afraid, loses confidence, and hides. He's lost his confidence. So I just wanted to, it's a bit of a stretch, I realize that, but I thought it was something worth mentioning, that when you realize you're naked, when you're self-aware, then you either can say, yes, I have, or rather, no. If you realize that you're naked, then you're constantly looking within, and you feel the threat of everyone around you. If you do not have the confidence to withstand that vulnerability, then you're simply going to hide like Adam. And that sense of confidence when you feel vulnerable, that sense of general confidence, not with some single entity in the world, but the general sense comes from a friendly and amiable relationship with God, or at least that's what Genesis proposes. It's an interesting thought. I don't know if it's right, but that's what I think. There's a couple other points I wish to make, so I think I've made this point well enough. I don't know if I've rambled, but I think I got it. To this, God replied, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I had forbidden you to eat?" This is interesting because it assumes that Adam is innocent, right, in his first question. Or at least it's sort of like God is a little confused. I mean, I know God is omniscient, can't be confused, but it appears that he's confused, right? It's like when you see somebody doing strange, you're first confused by why they're doing it until you realize what they were up to, right? And that seems like God's reaction here. It's like, what? How did you know you were naked? Did you eat from the tree? You know what I'm saying? How did you know you were naked? Oh, you ate from the tree, eh? Something like that, you know? But it still assumes innocence first, right? It assumes that Adam was told that he was naked, that it wasn't Adam's fault that he knows that he's naked. But then he realizes, perhaps he ate from the fruit of the tree. And so he asked him, hey, have you eaten from the fruit of the tree? And then the man replied, the woman whom you put here with me, she gave me fruit from the tree, so I ate it. And so Adam blames the woman first, right? He doesn't accept responsibility. You know, when people feel vulnerable and naked, they try their best to defend themselves. So there's a whole literature on defense mechanisms of people. It's like I think that started with Freud's daughter, Anna Freud. At least my familiarity with the idea of defense mechanisms, like the modern sense of it, started, I think, with Anna Freud. She started really investigating it, or at least thinking about it psychoanalytically, and I think it's grown from there. I don't know. I think it's grown from there, and defense mechanism. Yeah, so obviously this is a defense mechanism. Adam, he just deflects and says, "It's not my fault. It's Eve's." And Eve does the same. Basically, she says, "The snake tricked me, so I ate it." So yeah, something to learn about vulnerability. You know, this is the way people act when they feel vulnerable. They try to deflect and say, "No, it's not me." They try to wiggle their way out of it, perhaps like a snake, right? When they, in the very act of accusing the snake, they themselves are acting like a snake, eh? It's a little ironic there, right? But yeah, that's all I've got to say about those verses. The main point I had to make was the confidence thing, and the whole deal about nakedness and the relationship with confidence and what God has to do with any of that, and also relationships. That seems to be the most important aspect of those verses, and it's definitely a very interesting topic, the one of vulnerability and nakedness and confidence and just sin. You know, this is how sin makes you act like a snake, makes you act squirmy and just not honest. This is it's very interesting. That whole dialogue is very interesting. I don't think my analysis does it much justice. There's much more to it than I could explain, and I don't know. I tend to ramble, but yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Well, all right. I'll see you guys later.